Tim White, a student at FES, and coincidentally also a former local official who got to serve with my friend here, Marty Coburn, in a town nearby. With regard to, my question is, with regard to the thousands of jurisdictions in the country, many of which are overlapping, state, county, local, perhaps you have water authorities that intertwine with all of them. Generally, do you know if these jurisdictions have the authority to create performance measures at this time?
Yes, they do. What I've learned today, and I think we've all been hearing this for a long time, is that we lack a lot of knowledge that we need to be able to do that. And if you go back to what John said, it is the regulatory, by the way, just in defense of lawyers, I spent a lot of time with lawyers who thought that defense of the patents and the defense of the compounds was the silliest thing that ever heard. So it's not, obviously those lawyers are getting paid by their clients to argue a point of view, and they did that very, very effectively from their client's perspective. But we're struggling as attorneys, and we're struggling as the regulatory state to figure out what the measures are. Listen to the presentations that you heard this afternoon. The complicated science that's going into trying to figure out what the relationships are between fracking and compounds in the water. It's very, very complicated stuff. So, and that's one of the interesting things about adopting best practices into law and doing measurements and then continuing to try to do better, because it sort of allows you to function in the absence of certainty, of scientific certainty. So the real question you ask is whether or not local governments have the authority to adopt performance-based standards as a regulatory regime. The answer to that in most states is yes. Then the question becomes, how do they do it? And I think John's comment is right on point about how they'd have to get started doing that.
I would just add a footnote to that, which is some of you may be familiar with a report from the International Energy Agency released last year called Golden Rules for a Golden Age of Gas, and they talked about the need for increased transparency. They talked about the need for companies to earn and maintain their social license to operate. And they went through an exercise, a bunch of economists went through an exercise of, well, what's it going to cost if companies adopt best management practices? And of course, these numbers are sort of loosey-goosey, but it was on the order of maybe 7% or 8% in terms of increased costs. So, there's something to be said for, who goes naked without auto insurance? Who goes naked without homeowners insurance? 7 or 8%, not bad to maintain your social license to operate. And